All right, everyone, welcome back. As we talked about in the first video, we kind of looked at a quick overview of intrusion detection systems and some of the types of attacks that are out there. So I want to recap and everything that we've talked about a lot over the past couple of weeks as far as sort of kind of some basic concepts of security and why it's in place. Some of the different tools that are out there, and what is an attack? Why do we need to secure our networks? Why do we even care? What are the vulnerabilities? And I hope that in the first hands-on activity, kind of seeing the telnet, FTP telnet, sort of kind of the clear text protocols. I mean, that's just one small vulnerability that I find constantly on different networks. But as far as an attacker and getting to the attacker mindset, why do we need firewalls? Why do we need intrusion detection systems? We hit some of those types of attacks. Let's look at some of the steps that not only an attacker, but you as an administrator, if you're IT security, or if you're a network administrator, what are some of the things you should be looking at in order to try to better secure your network? What are some of the tools that we can use? So let's start off with doing some basic reconnaissance. Now, one of the most popular tools for doing penetration testing, for checking for vulnerabilities, for seeing different security devices is going to be Kali Linux. You've already downloaded the VM for that, and hopefully everyone was able to do the hands-on activity and watch the video and pay attention to that. Again, we're just going to build off of that. So our other hands-on activities are going to actually take that same scenario and we're going to try to build on that. So number one, when an attacker or a security administrator, they want to kind of see what's out there. We want to see, what type of information can they extrapolate or gain from just some basic reconnaissance. So some of the traditional attacks are using a ping, using trace route, port scans, OS operating system discovery, and vulnerability scanners out there to try to see what they can come up with. And then after they've done some reconnaissance, some of the compromised tools are doing passwords attacks, which one of our hands-on activities is going to be that. Trying to exploit vulnerable code using buffer overflows, doing SQL injection, automated custom attack toolkits like Metasploit is one of the big ones, and then using social engineering to see what they can come up with. As far as the cover-ups of after a systems are compromised, going in there and actually an attacker will actually change system logs, use rootkits, tunneling, encryption to try to hide their types of attacks or fragment their IP packets. So let's talk about that. So reconnaissance. Reconnaissance, we're basically, this is the first step. If you were doing red team exercises, if any of you don't know what a red team exercise is, a red team exercise is essentially you have a group within a company, and their whole goal is to try to find vulnerabilities, exploit them, and see where they're vulnerable. It's better to have your own people trying to exploit your network than actually having an attacker do it. That way you can fix the holes and kind of mitigate the risk to your environment. After that, they want to try to compromise the targets and then cover up and maintain covert control. So there's a difference in between passive reconnaissance and active reconnaissance. Passive reconnaissance is you're going to be using things like Google Hack, which will allow you to search for open web cameras. It's going to help you to. There's lots of tools out there. You can search domains. That'll have lots of valuable information. There's stuff like Who Am I? There is the, I think it's the Wayback Machine, where you can actually look at archive versions of web applications that are out there. And you want to try to just identify what types of servers that this particular company has. There's a great tool called Recon NG. So it's usually loaded on Kali Linux. We may use that as one of the hands-on activities as well. Again, this will be, I may use the remainder of the hands-on activities to kind of show what an attacker or a system administrator might try to use in order to gain more information about a particular company. So we may do something like a recon hands-on activity and then do a scanning enumeration activity, and then finally do an exploit activity. So all three of those will be something that a red team, which is a group of employees that work for the company, are trying to find vulnerabilities, an actual attacker or something like a system administrator are trying to get. So after the reconnaissance, you find out as much information as you can possibly find out about the company. Then you start doing scanning. So this is a little bit more aggressive, and so a lot of times what we'll do, you're trying to get a good idea of what the network looks like. You're trying to find IP addresses of gateways. You're looking for FTP servers. You're looking for, if you find IP addresses, you're going to try to start scanning for ports. You're going to look for vulnerabilities on those devices. You want to try to find the different paths to each host. And so one of the first tools that I use, and this is for system administrators and attackers, is Nmap. Now, Nmap, if you already have a list of IP addresses of a particular company, the Nmap is a great little tool to kind of help you to look for services that are open to the internet, and then at the same time begin to look at what those devices are. Are they Windows? Are they Linux? Or what are they? So here's a quick little cheat sheet when it comes to Nmap, just to kind of give you a good idea of the types of things that are used. So in essence, if you're using Kali Linux, and if you want to try this on your two VMs that you downloaded, since once you have them set up and everything, you want to use Nmap, and then the IP address that you're wanting to scan, and just see what it comes up with. You can use the IP address or the domain name. Obviously, this is, if you're using the Kali VMs, you're not going to have a domain name. You can scan a whole range of IP addresses, 192.168.1.1 through 20, or you can do a whole subnet. In addition, you can look for specific ports. So here, this particular Nmap scan is scanning on port 22, which, is everyone knows, is SSH on this IP address. This one just below it is scanning ports 1 through 100 on this particular IP address. And this one here is going to be scanning for the top 100 most common ports on this particular IP address. So this is really quick. If you just need to do a quick scan and you're trying to find, you see if the top 100 most common ports are being open on this particular device, this is definitely the one you want to look for. This one here, this is going to scan all 65,535 ports for TCP. So basically it's Nmap, TAC-M, TAC, and then the IP address. Now this is going to take a little bit more time to do, depending on how many IP addresses you have. There's different types of scans. So as we talked about in some of the previous videos and some of the reference videos, this is a TCP connect. This is going to do a full connect scan. So the three-way handshake is going to happen here. The SYN, the SYNAC is going to be completed on this one. This here, the SYN scan, this is only sending SYN, so it's actually not completing the handshake. So you're just going to be able to try to send a scan to see what's open. This is going to be for UDP scans. If you want to actually use a lot of these in conjunction, so for instance, case in point, if you wanted to scan all 65,535 ports on this particular IP address, and in addition, you wanted to see what the names of the services and possibly what the operating system is, there's a little option you can put on here. It's called TAC-A, and you're going to add that in and see if you can get the operating system and the services. I'm going to repeat those two things. If you wanted to scan all the ports, all 65,535 ports, this is what you're going to see. And then if you wanted to try to detect what the operating system and the services that are running on that particular box, you are going to look at this one here. Just keep all that in mind, folks. All right. So covering tracks, attacker must disguise the fact that there has been an attack. Trojan horses disguised as benign programs usually have a malicious intent. Installing backdoors, method to allow attacker to return. So one of the first tools that I'll try to use is something like Metasploit, to try to gain a shell on a box and then just leave that back door open for myself so that I can get back to it and have access to that computer. Putting a rootkit, run it with system privileges. So again, these are types of things that you would run covertly after you've already exploited some vulnerability. So we talked about attacks. We talked about the different things that are out there and what an attacker or someone might lose. So where does this fit in with intrusion detection systems? Well, this is going to be just a quick overlook of why we need intrusion detection systems in place. So basically, the approaches here for most intrusion detection systems are either going to be a signature based or an anomaly detected, and every now and again you'll have someone that has a hybrid setup within their network. But as far as deploying that, you're either going to have it on some piece of hardware, like a firewall or an intrusion detection system standalone, or you're going to and sometimes in conjunction you're going to have it on the host itself, some type of intrusion detection system on a workstation. So let's look at some of those. So let's talk about a host-based intrusion detection system and network-based. So the host-based is going to look at the system objects, processes, and memory, looking for see if an attacker has attempted to tamper with any of those processes. The downside to that is the visibility is limited to a single host. So if one of the like one single workstation is infected, then the intrusion detection system on that box is just going to say for that box. It's not going to say whether it's infected anywhere else. And as far as the network-based, it's going to actually use network packets for reconnaissance, exploits, denial of service attacks. This is what it's going to be used for. And it complements. So it's really a good idea to see these two together. If you have a host-based intrusion detection system on all your systems, and then you also have a network-based intrusion detection system deployed throughout your environment, that really is the best scenario. So to kind of see what we're talking about here, so you're going to see, again, this is setting up like network packets where we were using something like TCP dump, and you're going to see the traffic that's flowing from one segment of the network to the other. So this is definitely why a packet sniffer is used. Now, if an intrusion detection system is set up with a sniffer at the same time, it's going to be able to see what's going across from one segment to the other. It's going to be able to identify those things using the different ways that intrusion detection systems work. So what are the primary elements? It looks for system activities. They're observable. Normal and intrusive activities have distinct evidence. Components of intrusion detection systems, they're from an algorithmic perspective. Features, they're capture intrusion evidences, models, piece evidences together. From a system architecture perspective, audit data processor, knowledge base, decision engine, alarm. There's a lot of different pieces of an intrusion detection system. I'm not going to ask you to be required to know those. But what I do want you to know is how they work. So the two main ways are signature-based, which is the first one. It's looking for a specific incident that matches a known attack, a known signature. So there's a database that has tons of different signatures of known malware or attacks, and it's going to be judging the traffic based off of that. So the main problem there is who defines it. Well, there's lots of companies out there that have large databases filled with different attacks that can be loaded up onto these intrusion detection systems. So the main drawback is if there is a missing patch that's not known. So what if there is an attack out there that a particular device doesn't know about yet? So there's always the updating of the signatures. They have to be They have to be updated periodically. And they got to be distributed out to all the different intrusion detection systems. So Snort is one of the, I don't know if many of you know one of the open source firewalls out there. It's called pfSense. It's a really good, if you want something you want to play with it. And again, we may try to use that on our hands-on activities. There's lots of things I'd love to do as far as our hands-on activities, but I'm kind of limited. But Snort is a great little program for intrusion detection systems. It looks at that known malware. And here's a nice little picture. So it's going through all these files. It's the sniffer sitting on a network looking at everything. And it's saying, hey, this matches the description of known malware. And then it'll send out the alert. So then the anomaly detection. So this is going to be the second one. So the first one is signature detection, and the second one is the anomaly. So the problem here is that there's a lot of false positives that come with this. That can just be normal activity. So essentially what you'll do is you'll take an intrusion detection system that's anomaly detected, and you'll set it on your network for a period of time, and it'll look what should be normal traffic on your network. And then at that point, if it sees anything that's outside of that, it'll start sending alerts. And the problem is that you get a ton of false positives. Hey, there's something wrong, and it's really nothing wrong. So there's a lot of configuration changes that have to be done to an intrusion detection system that is anomaly based until it figures out what is normal traffic. But then at the same time, another problem is that if an attacker disguises his traffic as what would be normal traffic, then it's not going to pick it up at all. Potential to recognize new attacks without a known signature, so that's the bad thing about anomaly detection. Again, I just went over these a few minutes ago. Anything outside the definition. Anomalies are just unusual events. You know, sometimes that can just be regular traffic use on those particular devices. So some of the host-based intrusion detection systems, they're using OS auditing mechanisms. They monitor user activities, analyze shell commands, executions of system programs. That's basically what it's looking for on that specific host. So network-based intrusion detection, host-based intrusion detection. So basically it'll look for key files on a system, and if they're changed, it will send out an alert. Hey, you know, this particular file is being altered. Something's not right. I need to notify somebody. And it'll look like verifies a current state versus a baseline, calculates known cryptographic checksums to make sure that files have not been changed or altered. So it's going to watch for those changes impacting any of the configurations of that particular box, system privileges, security settings, core attributes, hash values. It's going to look at all this stuff, basically looking for changes. And again, this is host-based intrusion detection systems. All right, so this is a screenshot of the Encircle file integrity model. So it's basically looking at, hey, this particular, and again, this comes back to the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So the integrity of the files, it's going to be monitoring the integrity of certain files to make sure they're not changed by some sort of attacker. So the problem with these, anytime you have an intrusion detection system, and it's signature based, and you have a zero-day attack. A zero-day attack is basically an exploit that has not been known up until this point, meaning that it's the first day, it's 0 day. None of the antivirus, none of the malware is out there. Nobody knows about it. It has a completely unique look, and that's one of the big main attacks that always bring, there's always new attacks constantly coming out, and this is where it makes up the biggest amount of those, the 0 day attacks. So its vulnerability window is the time between the first exploit and the published fix. So before anybody's even figured out that it exists, before the fix is, this is the main time that this becomes rampant. So the main goal is to analyze it, test it, report it, and then try to mitigate it as best as possible with patching. So many OSs provide protection mechanisms against zero-day memory corruption vulnerabilities, such as buffer overflows. Multiple layers, port knocking, whitelisting, and keeping operating systems up to date are some mechanisms for zero-day protection. And so let me expound upon that just a little bit. Whitelisting and blacklisting, I think I mentioned this. Instead of you're seeing traffic, okay, this is bad, okay, let me mark this as bad, and mark this as bad, and mark this as bad. It would take you forever, and you would never stop marking things as bad. So why not just block everything and then only allow the types of traffic that you know is okay that your users are legitimately using. So in your firewalls, intrusion detection systems, you just block it all. It's all blocked. Everything's blocked, and then you start slowly adding different processes and applications and traffic that is normal to your environment in order to whitelist it. That way you don't have to try to keep up with all the zero-day attacks. So you want to watch for backdoors installed by hackers that we were talking about. Remove backdoors is not enough. Restore a hack system to a good, clean system, typically done via operating system reinstallation. Monitor running processes for hacker software, that may look legitimate, and watch for weird-looking file names that a hacker may try to install. These are all things that are best practices. Not going to really dig into too much of rootkits, but as far as low-hanging fruit, the main goal here, with firewalls, with cryptography, with intrusion detection systems, you just have to be better than your neighbor. So the hacker, I made the reference to the city wall. As long as your city wall has a lot of high walls and guards and protections, that attacker is going to go to the next place. It's not going to attack you. So, homegrown intrusion prevention to defeat a hacker. Think like a hacker. Again, this is where examine common files a hacker may look at, deter a hacker from using information in the file. So again, this comes down to having a red team in your environment, trying to think like a hacker. What are your important resources? What is valuable to your company? That's what you need to be looking for to try to protect. And protecting that, what are different ways that a hacker may try to get into it? So again, this is really comes down to the 20 best security controls, which we're going to go over. But essentially is you want to know what you have. So we just like scans like packet sniffing. You're looking at network traffic that's going across your network. You're looking at mmap scans. We're looking at ports that are open up to the internet. You want to see what's out there, what's vulnerable. There are versions of software that's vulnerable on my network and need to take care of these things. Then there's types of out-of-bound attacks. So people, weak link in corporate security plans, fall into social engineering. If I'm not able to compromise a vulnerable version of software, I don't see any ports or protocols and services out there that I can take advantage of, definitely want to go after social engineering. That is one of the best ways. And again, we talked about it earlier in the lecture about getting people to actually log into a particular website that you send them a URL, you call them up on the phone, you get them to go to some sort of website for some unknown reason. They put their credentials in. And then if that company has a virtual private network, they've just given you the username and password to be able to log into it. So another one of the things is, to try to protect, and again, that we're kind of incorporating intrusion detection systems and actually trying to secure a network at the same time. So you want to have strong policies that disallow connections of non-approved devices, like source IP filtering. You want to have things like that in place. It's got to be understood by everybody, that hey, look, I can't let anybody and everybody try to log in from your IP address. I have to restrict that. And there's all different types of ways that people could get in. So again, that's just one more layer of security. So a lot of times you'll see these types of the cyber power. So an attacker can actually use this as a jump box to do further penetration testing inside the local area network when it's plugged in. So again, this is just one more thing. So at this point, before I start digging into the next little section here, I'm going to go ahead and stop this video, pause it out, and then we'll start looking at some of the security event management, the correlation. Basically what this is going to be is, okay, now that we've stopped a lot of these people, we've blocked a lot of these people, the people that did get in, and now we're alerted. Now what are we supposed to do with all these logs? So we'll talk about that in the next section here.